Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so on today's episode, well, we are in a new era of Magic. Ever since the massive bannings at the end of 2024, things have been a bit turbulent, and well, there has been a shakeup in the Power 9 of Commander because, well, some of those cards got banned, so now other cards are filling in the gaps. That being said, of course, yeah, there's some really powerful cards in the Power 9 still, of course, and if you weren't aware, let's jump into those banned cards first, then talk about my picks for the Commander Power 9, the 9 most powerful cards in Commander. So, when it comes to most of the banned cards, Mana Crypt, if you didn't hear, was banned. An artifact for 0 at the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you, and it can tap for 2 mana. Now, for the time being, I should say, this one is banned. There is some, finance speculation out there, buying up this card a little bit, keeping its price quite high right now, still around $81. Because at some point it might get unbanned because of, Wizards' game changers that they made with the bracket system. That being said, it's not unbanned yet, and at this point, again, it definitely was a Power 9 card, but right now it is not because it is banned, but if it's unbanned, it would definitely jump back into there. It is a mana rock that is free, it is absurdly fast mana, and the downside is you take about 1.5 damage on average each turn, which is not a big deal when you start at 40 life. Obviously, the other card that was banned as well that was on my Power 9 last time was Dockside Extortionist. 1/2 Goblin Pirate for 2 mana and red. Enters the battlefield. Create extra tokens or X the number of artifacts to enchant your opponent's control. This card, again, is another one that was debated for so many years. Will it get banned? Should it get banned? Did it get banned? It finally did. And all of a sudden, again, off the Power 9 list. But, again, speculation that this one could be one as well that would get potentially unbanned. I think this one is less likely than Mana Crypt, but we shall see. Regardless, again, a massive just influx of mana for you. It's also a combo potential type card. Both these cards are absurdly powerful, definitely belonged on the Power 9, but now they are banned, are not. And with that said, let's jump into my official Power 9 as of right now, which is March 2025, before some potential unbannings happen in April, and then we shall see if things get changed up again, because Wizards might just go crazy and unban so many things. Check out my episodes on that discussion, but now, the Power 9. And first up, a card that is not a game changer because Wizards didn't want to put it on the game changers list, but it's, one of the most pushed cards of all time, if not the most pushed card in Commander, Soul Ring, an artifact for a single mana, tap for 2. Basically, the Mana Crypt that is not banned. This is a card that is synonymous with Commander, which is why, even though some would argue that it should be banned, or at the very least on the Game Changers list, definitely, it is not because Wizards doesn't want, players to be like, I'm playing a Power 3 deck automatically because I'm including Soul Ring. Yeah. Anyways, this is absurdly fast mana. Again, when it comes to the rate of mana that you're expecting from a mana rock, paying 2 and tapping for 1 is solid, is efficient. This is the exact opposite of that. This is literally you pay 1 and it taps for 2. You are gaining mana. It's like a ritual effect right away when you play it, but it's also staying in play for you to utilize perpetually. It is absurdly powerful. One of the most powerful cards in Magic's history. And it is a card that is ubiquitous in Commander. It is everywhere in Commander. There are so many decks that have it. I think every single pre-con deck that has ever been made, I believe, has had it. Another reason why they don't put it on the Game Changers list, because then every pre-con would be a 3, which is kind of like the opposite of what they're going for, I guess. And then also a card that probably will never be banned because, again, it's synonymous with Commander, even though if they were to redo the format today, in this, whole, Soul Ring obsession wasn't there beforehand, this card would be banned before the format was ever made. It'd be like, yeah, why would that be included? No. So yeah, this is a card that is absurdly powerful. I think it's hard to argue against this one ever not being in the Power 9. Moving on, another artifact in the Power 9 that just got nominated by Wizards to be a game changer as well, the One Ring. Yeah, you knew they were going to push this card a bit when they announced Lord of the Rings set. Like, oh, what does the One Ring do? Oh, everything. And by the way, there's no downside at all. Legendary artifact for 4, indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. You are Progenitus, basically. Begin for upkeep, you lose 1 life for each bird encounter on it. Tap, put a bird encounter on it, then draw a card for each bird encounter on the 1 ring. The way that they made this, again, yes, there is a slight downside again. Begin for upkeep, you lose 1 life for each bird encounter on it. Again, losing life, not really all that big of a deal in Commander because you've got so much life to start off with. And of course, 1 life for 1 card, that's completely fine. You'll make that deal any day of the week. But it's not even that. It's not even that at all. Because you are tapping to those bird encounters on it first, drawing cards, and then only on your upkeep do you get punished. So you can actually, bounce it back to your hand and then avoid that. Yeah, you can definitely do that. Oh, and by the way, you're incentivized to bounce it back to your hand because if you recast it, then you just get protection from everything again. It is mass protection for yourself that is very easily usable, abusable, and repeatable, and also mass card advantage for literally any deck out there. It does so many things for you, and again, because it is, doesn't have a color, essentially for it, it is essentially a card that can fit into any deck, and it's pretty hard to argue against it for a lot of decks out there, except for the fact that it is $71. But yeah, that does not impact the fact that it is a Power 9 card, in my opinion. Again, mass protection for you, mass card draw for you, very little, if no downside, really, essentially, and of course, easy to use and abuse and manipulate the number of counters on it, as well as proliferate effects, which are more abundant these days, and on tap effects too. You can get so much value out of this. It is absolutely insane, and it is definitely, in my opinion, again, Power 9. Next up, when it comes to some enchantments, the first one that I have to bring up is actually, of course, Rhystic Study. Are you going to pay 1 for that? Are you going to pay 1 for that? Are you going to pay 1 for that? It never gets old. It was old a long time ago. Enchant for 3 mana in blue. Whenever opponent casts a spell that player, it is not going to pay this, but you draw a card unless they pay 1. Yeah, they're not going to pay that. I mean, they may pay that a couple of times, and then another player just doesn't pay, and then like, oh, okay, cool. Then why would I pay if they're not going to pay? The amount of card advantage that this can get you is absolutely insane. When it comes to the most protected types of cards as well, typically I would say that enchantments are on the hardier end, if not the hardiest type of card out there. Like creatures, like, okay, yeah, Wrath of God. Like most Wraths that are in most decks, you can get rid of creatures, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some that get rid of enchantments too, but when it comes to target removal, you probably have more like creature-based, that kind of stuff as well. So enchantments stick in play a good amount of the time. I would say even more so than artifacts, because like Vandal Blast and things like that. So this is going to stay in play quite a while, most likely, compared to some other things, and also it's going to give you so much card advantage. And even if it's not, it is a taxing effect on your opponents that basically, again, whenever they cast any spell, they got to pay 1 extra for that. And if they're doing that, you're already winning. You're already winning by taxing them, essentially. But of course, if they aren't paying for it or they can't pay for it, then all of a sudden you're winning even more and drawing an absurd amount of cards with this. This is absurdly efficient card advantage for you throughout the game that is unmatched when it comes to just repeat card advantage. I mean, the 1 ring might have, some words for that too, but you got to kind of work around that with some different ways and that kind of stuff, whereas this is just, I put it in play and it does all the work for me. Opponents cast spells and they're like, haha, we found a loophole around this. We won't cast spells. No one's doing that. So essentially, you're going to be drawing so many cards throughout the game. Opponents' heads will spin, you'll get so much card advantage against them, and you eventually will win the game with that card advantage influx if this stays in play. Rhystic Study, in my opinion, most definitely a Power 9 card. In Power 1 when it comes to annoyance. Next up, although Smothering Tithe might have something to say about that Power Level 1 in terms of annoyance. Yeah, it's up there too. Smothering Tithe, an enchantment for 4 mana in white. Whenever opponent draws a card that player may pay 2, player doesn't, you create treasure token. Again, this was the argument back in the day, right? Mono white needs more support, okay? All right, we need more card advantage, and we need more mana ramp, all right? Because mono white is weak compared to all the other colors with those things, and those things are incredibly important in Commander. Wizards like, don't worry, we got you. But they made it so that it's not just for mono white, because they really should have, and I've said this before, made this be like, okay, 4 white pips, or at least 3 white pips, essentially, for this card, so you can't just chuck it into any deck that has white. It is a Power 9 card. It is a card that, yeah, you get this in play, you're probably going to win if it sticks around, because opponents drawing cards, yeah, I mean, they're already just going to be doing that naturally on their turn. And 2 is an absurd amount to pay per card. Absurd. I mean, this thing would be super powerful if it was just even 1 for that payment, but it is 2. It is impossible for players to keep up. And of course, there are certain strategies that, well, yeah, maybe like a wheel, essentially, or just even your opponent's just casting spells to draw cards for themselves, like a brainstorm. The player is going to pay an extra 6 mana for that brainstorm, so you don't make 3 treasures? No, they're not going to pay 7 mana for a brainstorm. So you get absurd amounts of treasures that don't come into play tapped. You get to utilize them right away if you need to. So again, if you're like, wheel, yeah, you just win the game if you wheel once, basically, with this, essentially. You're like, oh, cool, I got 21 treasures. Yeah, okay. Oh, I drew another wheel. All right, wheel again. Oh, cool, 21 more treasures. All right, cool, all right, yeah, I win. Yeah, this is a card that, again, the amount of mana advantage, it's kind of like Rhystic Study, where Rhystic Study is like, okay, card advantage that is absurdly efficient over time. Smothering Tithe is absurdly efficient, potentially right even away when it comes to mana, because if you just wheel with it, you're like, okay, the game's over. Yeah, I just win. I got so much mana, there's nothing you can do about it. This is a crazy good card. Definitely, in my opinion, again, power 9 worthy. And of course, yeah, power 1, power 2 when it comes to annoyance as well. Smothering Tithe, Rhystic Study. Which one's more annoying? Let me know in the comments below. Next up, let's move on to some instants. And first up, Cyclonic Rift. The only, in my opinion, I think this is correct actually, the only card that was put on the Game Changers list that is actually like just removal. Okay, I'm not counting counter spells with that, but like actually just removal, board wipe, because yeah, the other ones are good, but they're not like this. This is a just step above everything else when it comes to removal. There is nothing else like it. It is so hyper efficient. It is insane and literally just a game ending card that is flexible as well. Instant for 2 mana in blue. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. There are so many other cards that do just that, and it could stop right there, but it doesn't. Overload for 6 in a blue. This is a one-sided, instant speed, efficient board wipe that literally doesn't cost all that much compared to what it does. Again, this is, oh, out of nowhere. Yeah, hey, you know how all of you were working on all those things through the entire game? No. Nope. I just don't like it anymore. Nope, right before my turn, I'm gonna be like, nope, I get to keep my board. You don't get to keep yours. Again, it is not even. You get to keep all your things. Your opponents don't get to keep anything. And again, it's instant speed out of nowhere. It can save you in a tough situation. And it also gonna just be like, oh yeah, hey, I've got my army to swing out right now. Yeah, y'all have blockers. I don't like that. Bounce all the blockers. All right, and all your other things too while we're at it. And I win this way too. It is so flexible, so efficient. And again, like literally if you need to like save yourself, like, oh, someone's trying to combo off with something, I just have 2 mana available. Okay, I'll bounce that thing back to your hand. All right, your combo's not happening now. Okay, again, it is so flexible, so efficient, and nothing else does anything like it. Nothing else is anywhere near as flexible. Sure, there are other things that do similar things, like, okay, bounce one person's board, but it's sorcery speed at 6 mana, or destroy all, non-land permanents. That's 7 mana, and also costs absurdly, I mean, it's an ultimatum, Ruinous Ultimatum, costs an absurd mana value, essentially, is so specific. This is like, oh yeah, no, instant speed, a single blue mana, and 6. Can you handle that? Yeah, I can handle that. It's absurdly good. It is the only type of removal that I will probably ever put on the Power 9 until hopefully Wizards doesn't put something better than this. But yeah, this is just absolutely leagues above everything else, and I'm not counting counterspells with that because we'll get to that here in a second. But yeah, Cyclonic Rift, definitely in my opinion, Power 9 worthy. Moving on, like I mentioned, when it comes to like removal, sure, you can consider like counterspells as kind of removal-ish, but like I consider them in separate buckets really. But Fierce Guardianship, a card that was, when they printed it, was one of those like, why, Wizards? Like, I know you want to sell the product, but do we really need this? And blue players are like, yeah. Instant for 3 mana in blue. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell paying its mana cost, counter target non-creature spell. Well, here's the thing. We're playing a format called Commander, and most decks out there like to have their commander in play. Ah, okay. Well, that seems pretty obvious that this is just going to be a free counter spell. But wait, no, it's not a counter spell because it only counters non-creature spells. Well, basically, that's what you care about most of the time when you're countering spells. Like, typically, like 90% of the time, like that's what you really care about. Because if you look at, Negate on EDA Trek, it's one of the most played cards of all time. Counters non-creature spell for 2 mana in blue. It's very good. If you look at Essence Scatter, doesn't see much play at all. It counters a creature spell. Yeah, non-creature is going to be more important. This is a free, just get out of jail free card. Like, oh, I'm tapped out. Your opponent's like, oh, cool, they're tapped out. I can do things now. No, you can't. I've got my commander in play, which means that you can't do this, which is such a weird thing. Anyways, even if your commander's not in play, it is still literally just 1 extra mana than a negate. It is like, okay, it's slightly inefficient. I will still utilize it. But yeah, most of the time, it is free for you. It is absurd. It is a card that, yeah, Force of Will and this one can kind of go back and forth, I would say, when it comes to the Power 9. I'd probably ever include one of them on the Power 9 when it comes to, like, a counterspell inclusion compared to all the other crazy things in Magic. Power 9, you can definitely have that argument, you know, for Force of Will too, but this one is just, when it comes to Commander specifically, it's a free spell. It is literally a free spell the vast majority of the time. You got your commander in play, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, I deal with whatever I need to deal with. Force of Will does require you to have another card in hand. That being said, most of the time you will have that. It's still a very good card. Don't yell at me in the comments below too much, but yes, you can argue between those two. Fierce Guardianship, though, free counterspell, definitely, in my opinion, worthy of consideration and worthy of the title of a Power 9 card. Moving on to a sorcery with Demonic Tutor. Yeah, it's really hard to beat the OG. Sorcery for 2 mana in black. Search library card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. You know how good this card is? Well, there's another card that's called something similar, Diabolic Tutor, that still sees an absurd amount of play in Commander. And you know what? It's only half as good as this one. And by half as good, I mean, like, it cost half as much. This costs half as much as the other version of it. You literally double the other version of it. You say, okay, add extra 1, add extra black. It is 2 black, and it still does the exact same thing, and it sees an absurd amount of play. So that shows you just how good this is. It's an incredibly efficient tutor. It's an absurd tutor, and yes, there are other amazing tutors out there, and I will mention a few of them right now. Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, all those kind of 1 mana instant speed tutors. Those are amazing, and yes, there can be an argument that, you know, in many opinions out there, that could be better than this one. That being said, those put the cards on top of the library, which, yes, yeah, right before your turn, cool, all right, draw it next turn. This is 1 mana extra. It's not instant speed, sure, but this is literally just any card in your deck. Any card you can think of. Any card you need. What situation are you in? Do you need a Wrath? Cool, all right, it's that. Do you need a combo piece? Okay, it's that. Do you need your big creature? All right, it's that. Cool, awesome. Whatever you need it to be, it is that. It can even just be a land if you need a land drop. This is just whatever that card is, plus 2 mana, that's it. Right to your hand. It's absolutely absurd. Beware the generosity of demons is the flavor text, and you don't need to beware at all, because literally there is no downside to this card. It is just, okay, cool. Hey, you need that? All right, you got it. All right, thanks, demon. Appreciate it. Great. Awesome. Good for me. Yeah, when it comes to tutors, I'm going to be putting 1 into my Power 9 right now, and this is the one that I do believe is above the rest. I know there definitely can be arguments for Vampiric, but still, I would put Demonic above it. An amazing, efficient, amazing effective tutor. Any card in your deck plus 2 mana, it's absolutely crazy. Demonic Tutor definitely deserves, in my opinion, to be called a Power 9 Commander card. Next up, let's move on to a land or two. And first up, there's Gaia's Cradle. Now, this is a card that is absurdly expensive. Wizards Reserve List? Yeah, okay. Legendary land that can tap for a green to your mana pool for each creature you control. Here's the thing. This is an absurd effect. This is a land that is just a mass mana producer on its own, and literally, you're just like, oh, okay. I got like 5 creatures in play. Just play this. Okay, I just ramped a ton. And more likely, if this is in a certain deck, you probably have even more creatures than that. Like, oh yeah, okay, cool, all right. Got 10 creatures in play. Play my land. All right, I'm up 10 mana now. What else can do that? Nothing else can do that. I mean, if Tolarian Academy was, not banned, then that for artifacts, but still, absolutely absurd mana generation. And when it comes to, like, quick mana, yeah, you can get creatures out there quite quickly for the right decks as well. So, yeah, this can really get going in absolutely no time as well for the right strategy. It's an absurdly expensive card for a reason. I mean, even like the gold bordered version of it is super expensive too. That being said, it is a card that makes a massive impact on the game. It is a card that, again, I already talked about how enchantments are hard to deal with in the most part. Not like hard to deal with, but again, they're hardier, I would say, than, say, creatures, which are like the most flimsy kind of thing to deal with. Lands in Commander are the hardest thing to deal with because players don't play a lot, if any, land removal. Because, well, it's kind of like a... well, you kind of thing you don't do, really. When it comes to mass land destruction, you just don't do that. When it comes to, like, single target removals for lands, not a lot of cards out there are doing that for most decks. Sure, there's, like, certain things like destroy target permanent, but you only have so many of those, essentially, compared to other ones that are more efficient. Maybe they're like, okay, get rid of artifacts or enchantments or whatnot. So it is a really hard thing to get rid of that also just can really quickly ramp you to a point where an opponent has no chance to do anything. And of course, our land tutors essentially as well. For the right strategy out there, and again, when it comes to like, okay, creatures with a green deck, yeah, that's almost every green deck. Yeah, so this is a card that is just absurdly powerful. So good in those strategies. It is a card that when it hits the table, the entire table goes, oh my gosh, what do we do now? The game is probably over. And I didn't even talk about strategies that also untap lands, because like, okay, I tap it for 10, I tap this creature, I untap my land, and thanks, Grossfall, appreciate that. And then I tap it again. Yeah, okay, that's 20 mana from one land and doing nothing. Yeah, it's absurdly powerful. And again, with the loss of certain, quick mana or, fast mana cards, I would say that others kind of fill that void, essentially. We lost, Dockside. We lost Mana Crypt. And now Gaia's Cradle's like, okay, maybe it's time to put this one in the Power 9. So there you go. Gaia's Cradle, definitely, in my opinion, worthy of the title of a Power 9 commander card. And finally, kind of with that loss of Mana Crypt as well, Ancient Tomb has made it into my Power 9 for Commander. A land that is very simple, very effective. Tap for 2, it deals 2 damage to you. Oh no, 2 damage. Again, like in another format, sure. Like back in the day in Standard, maybe it's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, all right. That's a 10th of my life total. Ouch. This is like, oh, okay, yeah, I wouldn't even think about that at all. Like, yeah, okay, I went from 40 to 38. What's the difference? Yeah, I lost 2 life. That's like 1/20th of my life total. Does not matter. This is hyper fast mana for you, and there's only so many hyper fast mana cards again, especially ones that just stay and just keep giving you mana. Like, it doesn't like, okay, it doesn't untap or anything like that, like a Mana Vault. Not that Mana Vault's not very good. It's very, very, very good, obviously. But yeah, Ancient Tomb's like, okay, cool, yeah, tap for mana. All right, next turn you get 2 more mana. Good for you. Good. Oh, you take the damage? Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You probably got some life gain in the deck anyways or whatever. Who cares? Or you're just going to win so quickly anyways. It doesn't matter that you have no life. Who cares? This is just, oh, okay, I'm ahead of my opponents automatically. Again, if I have, say, a Mana Rock in my hand, again, typically those cost 2, tap for 1 or whatnot. Okay, cool, all right. Turn 1, play this, tap, out of my Mana Rock and play. Awesome, I'm good to go. Or if you have a Soul Ring on top of that, good for you. You've got 3 mana on turn 1 to work with. Yeah, this is a way to just hypercharge yourself, get so far ahead of your opponent so quickly. It is such a good card. Definitely, in my opinion, again, because of the slight loss of, again, some fast mana cards, essentially. Some others, in my opinion, kind of fill the void a little bit. And Ancient Tomb is an absurdly good card. Definitely, in my opinion, Power 9 in Commander. But now as this episode is wrapping up again, I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on my Power 9? Again, going through it really quick. Soul Ring, the One Ring, everything with the word ring in it apparently. Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe, Cyclonic Rift, Fierce Guardianship, Demonic Tutor, Ancient Tomb, and Gaia's Cradle. So that is my Power 9, the new Power 9 for Commander. Again, we lost 2 that were in my previous Power 9 with a banning. See if any other bans happen. The Wizard said they haven't had other bans that are going to happen in the meantime, in the near future. At some point, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if something gets banned, but again, they're changing things up, and some things very well might get unbanned. Again, we very well might see, well, maybe not Dockside, but maybe Mana Crypt get unbanned with the whole game changers that they have now. And they could just say, well, it's just a game changer, and you can only include so many of those for this kind of a power level, so we shall see. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on my Power 9. Of course, there's a lot of other amazing cards out there that I did not even mention on this episode, like, yeah, Necropotence. It's a crazy good card, obviously. I mean, I kind of mentioned Force of Will as well. There's a lot of amazing cards, a lot of incredibly powerful ones, including many in the, Game Changers list. Glacial Chasm. Just kidding. That's not really a Power 9 card, but still, it's on the Game Changers list for whatever reason. But, Necropotence isn't. Weird! And with that, this episode is come to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on it. And, of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.